Good afternoon. Thanks for joining us on the WWL Louisiana News at 4. I'm Devin Bartolotta. Here are today's top headlines. A major shakeup at the St. Tammany Parish Sheriff's Office. In a matter of hours, the agency's top leadership has been upended. Brett Eibert will now serve as the new interim sheriff. He steps up from enforcement operations to take the reins following the sudden resignation of Randy Smith. He officially stepped down at 1 o'clock this afternoon, just hours after pleading guilty to second-degree battery and disturbing the peace. He is now a convicted felon and faces 2 years of probation. Lily Cummings was in the courtroom this morning as that plea was entered. Lily, what is the very latest this afternoon?
Yeah, Devin, not only does Sheriff Randy Smith face that 2 years of supervised probation, but he is also facing a specialty sobriety court program. Now, if he completes that, this felony conviction could be reduced to a misdemeanor in 15 to 18 months. And Devin, you'll remember that all of these charges stem from a May 29th incident at a Madisonville steakhouse where Smith was accused of attacking local social media personality Bobby Cuvion during happy hour. Investigators say Cuvion was treated at a hospital for a concussion and dental injuries. Cuvion was in the courtroom today and praised the investigation, calling it thorough and impartial. This drama unfolds at a critical time for the agency. Parish leaders are anxiously awaiting Saturday's election, where voters will decide on a 10-year millage renewal for the sheriff's office. When asked if the timing of Smith's plea was connected to the tax vote, District Attorney Colin Sims had this to say.
I think it's important, just in general, that the public understands that you are funding an agency, not a person. And that agency does critically important work. The men and women of that agency show up every day. They work hard for us. They do the job that we need them to do to keep this community safe.
Now, as for who is in charge now, Devin, as you mentioned, Chief Deputy Brett Eibert fills that role temporarily before a special election is called. That's because Smith's second in command, Chief Deputy Jeff Boehm, also abruptly retired. DA Colin Sims refused to comment on whether or not he is being investigated for anything related to this restaurant incident. Reporting live from the St. Tammany Parish Courthouse, Lily Cummings, WWL Louisiana.
All right, Lily, thank you so much. A little later in the show, we're going to look at the historical significance of this resignation. Until then, you can find out more, including reactions from other leaders on our website, our social media, and our free apps. In more top stories this afternoon, a major accounting firm will now help Attorney General Liz Murrill in public corruption investigations. That includes the case targeting former New Orleans Sheriff Susan Hudson. Hudson was indicted earlier this year on 30 counts tied to last year's jailbreak at the Orleans Justice Center. Prosecutors say safeguard failures helped 10 inmates escape before they were all eventually captured. Hudson has denied any wrongdoing. Our partners at NOLA.com report Murrill hired Ernst & Young to collect and review contracts, agreements, and financial records for state investigators. Today, a trial got underway for one of 3 men accused of a French Quarter killing. This comes after his 2 co-defendants pleaded guilty. Nicholas Mirana and his cousin, Daryl Adams, accepted plea deals in exchange for 45-year prison sentences. That leaves Daniel Mirana, Nicholas's brother, to face trial. Prosecutors say he was seen on video shooting Yasmin Webb outside a restaurant on Iberville Street. 3 other people were hurt. Nicholas and Daryl are expected to be sentenced tomorrow. Daniel faces a life sentence if convicted. In St. John Parish, 3 young people were arrested for a spree of car burglaries. And the trio are just 12, 13, and 14 years old. The 14-year-old had also been arrested in April for similar crimes, as well as illegal possession of a handgun by a juvenile. The sheriff's office says they were called around 3 on Saturday morning about suspicious people walking around Grant Drive in LaPlace. All 3 have since been released back into the custody of their parents. And Paul Murphy spoke with the sheriff earlier today. Paul, those ages, they are so young. That's really shocking to hear.
I mean, it is a sad story on many levels here. You have young kids, boys, if you will, 12 and 13, being led astray by, as the sheriff said, the 14-year-old who was the alleged ringleader, who had been in trouble before for the same type of activity, breaking into vehicles. And in April, he was found with a gun. And he was placed in a court-ordered ankle monitoring program. So here you have this 14-year-old walking around freely the streets of the Bell Point subdivision, with nobody noticing. And he had previously been, as you said, caught with a gun. The 13-year-old in this scheme also had a gun. And the fact that, you have a 14-year-old who is court-ordered ankle monitoring, gun, and then allowed to go home with his parents without going to court. And from what Sheriff Trigg tells me, that the hard part is that you just don't have enough facilities in the state to house juvenile offenders. In fact, in St. John, he has to send many of his juvenile offenders to a facility in Mississippi. So in many cases, the court has no choice but to place even hardened criminals at 14, if you could believe that, sentence them or put ankle monitors on them rather than remanding them to prison.
What did Sheriff Trigg say about what happens next for these three? They've been, will they go to court? Have they been charged?
Oh yeah, they'll end up in court at some point. But the question is, will they spend any time in a juvenile facility? And again, it's like one man told us in the Bell Point subdivision, if you don't teach your kids, if you don't show your kids an example, the streets will. And that's the moral of this story, unfortunately.
It is a sad story. All right, Paul, thanks so much. Your full story is coming up at 6 o'clock tonight?
Coming up at 6, yes.
All right, thank you so much. And you can always find the latest updates on this story and all of today's headlines on our website, social media, and our free apps.